Can I just give you some pictures of selected project updates so that you can have a feel of how the Deca Homes projects are being made. Okay, so this is Urban Deca Tower EDSA. So this is going to be 41 floors. And then we're already on the second floor as of now. And so the building is being constructed on schedule. In fact, it is 49 days ahead of schedule. Okay. Now the sales of this have been pegged basically from the start at about 20%. And the reason for that is we're not pushing it as well or as hard because this is only 1,000 units. And so I've already sold about 200 of that. And since the building will be finished by 2017, I think it would be more prudent on our part if we sell it when the building is done, thereby maximizing the package price compared to when selling it at lower prices for pre-selling. That also means that we have the financial, the funds already in place to actually finish the building without using buyers' down payments as an assistance to funding. This is our medium-rise building in Muntinlupa. It's called Urban Deca Homes Campville. This is in Muntinlupa. It's 1.9 hectares, also 1,000 units. We've already made and sold 15 units. So what you have here is the second building. We have already finished the first. We're now doing the second building. The interiors of the place look like this. Designed by our Assistant General Manager, Aleli. So the sales of this are doing very well. This is a good product to sell in Metro Manila. So it's 4 stories. There will be an elevator per 2 buildings. So we will do an arch or an archway that will cross 2 buildings and have 1 elevator. Diba? This is Angeles, Deca Clark Resort Residences, where we have the wakeboard park. 80 hectares, almost 5,000 units, it's halfway done. And so we expect to finish this by next year. We have our project in General Trias called Deca Homes Bella Vista in Cavite. 50 hectares, almost 4,000 units. This will be finished before the end of the year. This is our one and only joint venture with BG. This one of our newest project is called Deca Homes Pavia Resort Residences. We will have a wakeboard park in this area. The first phase is 88 hectares out of 145. And therefore, we envision to have 3 wakeboard parks, one in Luzon, one in Visayas, and one in Mindanao, which will also act as an incentive for our homeowners to pay their monthly amortization on schedule and on time, because if they do, they can wakeboard for free. So it's 15% sold and 15% constructed because this is one of the startup projects which will, by 2016, gain more traction and more speed as we continue to build the units. Now about this is the latest project, 54 hectares, over 3,000 units. It's half sold. This is in Indangan in Davao City. And so this will take us another year to finish, but we already bought a property in Turil, Davao City, which is also maybe 15 minutes away from downtown. So it's very close. It's in Turil. That's 100 hectares. So that will be another big project for Deca Homes. Just in time when we finish this. The nice thing about big properties for us in Deca Homes is that we're able to average down certain costs, like cost of amenities, allowing us now to produce subdivisions with very good amenities, and the effect on the individual package price per unit becomes very small because of the high density. That's why we can afford to put wakeboard parks in big projects, churches, swimming pools, clubhouses. I even have a football field in one of the projects in Davao, because I can average down the cost. That's one of the things that we can do because we have big properties to build. This is in Cebu, our second medium-rise building. It's Deca Homes Tisa. This just started in January. Can you imagine this place without the buildings? Now there's all this development. Like Muntinlupa, we're using our own technology. Our own technology can finish a building of 80 units in 35 to 40 days. This also comes with a certification from the PhilVox and from there's a disaster coordinating council which certifies that our buildings can withstand earthquakes up to 7.9. So I say that because today is National Earthquake Preparedness Day. And then because of that, I've instructed to get also certifications for our horizontal projects, because we don't have it. We just assume that it's sturdy. And this technology has withstood the test of time, in the sense that there was this earthquake in Bohol that also had aftershocks based in Cebu, and not one of our units were actually damaged. It was a good thing too, because the president of China Bank was actually doing an official site visit. And so when he saw that the units were okay, he approved our loan next week, following week. Okay, so that's 13 units sold. Okay, so there you go. Now that we have seen the projects, let's see how these things translate to operating and financial performance for the first semester of 2015. Okay, let's take a look at what happened in the second quarter. In the second quarter, we were able to grow our gross sales by 19%, and then giving us a net income after tax of 36. We also increased our margin to 47 from what was last year's 42. This, when you add it to the first quarter, then our gross sales becomes 12%, which wipes out the rather flat but understandable situation of earnings in the first quarter. Okay, so we now have a net income after tax of more than 2 billion, which means to say that if you average out the 4 billion guidance which I made at the early part of this year, not knowing anything about how our business done, but just divided by 4, then we're actually up by 127 million for a mid-year guidance. And so our margins are still steady at 59% on gross, 47% on net. But as I always say, I commit to only 40% net margin. The 7% actually came from certain efficiencies that we were able to do. It also came from the fact that the prices of steel is significantly stable and going down. With this, I'm encouraged to say that we are still on track to meet our earnings guidance for the rest of the year. If you look at our core business performance, and we define core business as housing revenues plus CTS income, it reached almost 4.9 billion this year, up 16%. Housing-related income is still 97% of the holding company. Therefore, as of today, 8990 Holdings is still a home building mass housing company. Our revenues from CTS income has grown to 42%, and this contributes a steady 12% to our core income. So we're we're happy to note that our CTS income is a stable and reliable contributor to our gross. In fact, one of the slides that I shown when we had the 9 billion corporate bond offering is that based on the earnings of our CTS alone, growing at only 20% for the first 5 years, our CTS, sliding down to 8 when you see our CTS grow by at least 30 or 40%. So very conservative. What I'm saying is that our CTS income alone is enough to pay for the 9 billion bond offering that we made. What does that mean? That means I don't have to get a portion of my income. I don't have to sell any of the portfolio of the CTS. The income that comes from that is already more than enough to actually pay for the 5 billion bond. Let's look at some growth factors. Now, externally, last year we noted these 4 factors that contribute to a sustained demand and therefore a good business in housing. These factors are still in play. I'd like to also mention that there are now 2 new factors which encourages us to actually deliberately grow our business even more. And one is the Pag-IBIG funds lowering of their core interest rates to 6.5%. That means that for the same amount of package price, the monthly amortization for the buyer is now much lower. And then we couple that with a second happening in the industry, which is the HUD-C resolution increasing the ceiling price for low-cost housing from 1.25 billion to 1.7. So that means even if we increase our present prices now, on the average, Deco Homes price is at 960,000 pesos. Even if we increase that above the ceiling before of 1.25 million to 1.7, it would still be recognized as low-cost housing and therefore get the same benefits and interest rates as low-cost housing enjoys today. But at the same time, we can now increase the price and therefore add more value to our subdivision projects in terms of better features for housing, better amenities for the subdivisions, better sports facilities for our homeowners as well. Internally, for the first 6 months, this is what we did. We successfully launched 6 out of 9 projects. We stabilized our materials purchase prices. We continued double casting of units so that now I have an inventory of panels so that if anything happens, for example, there's a prolonged rainy season and I cannot cast, then I already have certain inventories that I can just pull out. So, in effect, as a publicly listed company, I have learned to save for the rainy day. Because I don't think our investors will care if I did not meet my commitments because it wasn't sunny in the Philippines. In the selling side, we were able to add 240 new sellers nationwide, making our selling force all over the country accredited downlines about 2,800 sellers. We were able to also increase our selling prices by 7%. And this is what we realized. Last year, we realized that more than sales velocity, it is our capability to build more and more houses that determines our long-term sustainability. Today, we're realizing that in addition to being capable of building all these units additionally, we have to make sure that we're able to maintain our quality. And therefore, we need to satisfy certain customer standards and therefore maintain or even increase customer service and customer satisfaction. That is why internally, we've done certain things to make sure that our units, even as we grow and build more, we are able to maintain our quality, and then we now have repair teams that are on standby in case homeowners, there are homeowners instructions for certain things, certain small things they need to fix. What is also interesting is that this realization was actually echoed by one of the investor funds that I visited on the roadshow. She was Thai, she was from Fidelity. And then she said, you know, Jay, Bangkok, Thailand had a similar experience. I just want you to realize that, you know, you're growing at the rate of 20%. And this kind of growth is not rare in Bangkok. There are many property developers who endeavor to grow this, but the lesson to be learned there is that the quality suffered so much that they just had to either close shop or just have to bear with all the problems coming along the way. And so with that, it bolstered our confidence to actually make sure that, you know, while we mind the quantity of houses we build, we should also be mindful of the quality, and we're able to maintain it. Because at the end of the day, okay, the most effective form of advertising for our houses is our satisfied customers. The number one source of new customers is referrals. That's why we don't need to advertise too much. Showing that for the first semester, it's Southern Luzon that has carried the highest portion of the pie. Together with North Luzon, they're about half of the deliveries for this semester. We are very hopeful about Iloilo because by the end of December 14, this was only maybe about 8%. Today it's up 13, and we see this increasing as we begin to develop a certain momentum in that area. One of the things that I should have emphasized more in the first quarter is that in 2015 we will be launching 9 new projects, making 50% of our revenue. Now, one of the things about launching new projects is whoever you are, you will have to start from gear number 1. It's like a car, gear number 1. And therefore, if you want your car to be efficient when you go to the 4th gear, you have to go through the paces. Our job in management is to make sure that the gearing up or the momentum build happens as short as time as possible, so that we get into this cruising speed at the soonest possible time. And this is what we've been endeavoring with the new projects that were being implemented or being started. If we can describe 2015 for house as a watershed year, I'd like to describe 2016 as the one that carries us to a new high, because by that time, all these projects that we started have all achieved their momentums or their cruising speed for the projects, and therefore the maximum benefit in terms of sales, production, takeouts, and income will now be brought forth in the highest degree by that time. 97% of our business is still housing. Our 3% other income, this is our timeshare and our hotel revenues. This is just a breakdown of where the revenues come from. So for this semester, it's Southern Luzon and then followed by Cebu. So we've launched 6 projects out of 9. These 3 projects, 2 in Davao, 1 in Cebu, we want to launch this year. We're almost through with the government permits and licenses. Admittedly, this was delayed because of a nationwide comprehensive land use plan procedure which all local governments had to do. In other words, they had to revise their comprehensive land use plans, submit them to the HLURB for approval. In the meantime, there was no permits coming out for that involved real estate. So be it housing, be it commercial development. So some of the cities have already been approved, and so they have new comprehensive land use plans. Davao is one of them that has been recently approved. So we expect that this shall be happening very soon. So I'm happy to note also that out of the 6 launched projects, 4 have already contributed 744 housing units to the top line, giving out more than 800 million in revenue for the first half. So the market is still that, 4.2 million, growing at 5% per year. These are the demographics of our homeowners. You will see that they're young, ages 23 to 45 years old. They are college educated and licensed professionals. They're 100% gainfully employed. Okay, but if you look at the demographics, the majority of them are your office workers, your BPO, and your OFW. BPO and OFW would be about 10 to 15% each of the total employment demographic. Now, we have established a minimum 35,000 pesos monthly salary. And so, as I tell many other groups that I present to, it is unfortunate that Deca Homes is not housing for the poor. That's not us. We are housing for the average, working, educated, ordinary Filipino and his family, which for some reason, their package price is outside of the current radar of the financial sector. And so they have to go to Pag-IBIG Fund or they go to our in-house finance. Okay, but this is a very viable market for the simple reason that they've got cash flow coming out of their gainful employment. And these are the people that we deal with every day. These are the people who actually man our accounting department, our administrative workers, our bank tellers. There are some who are waiters in the places where we eat. These are also drivers of vans, utility vehicles, and corporate cars, and so forth and so on. We also have licensed professionals like nurses, engineers. We have a few lawyers, and we do not encourage lawyers to buy from us. And we have a few foreigners as well. I'll take the lawyer anytime from a foreigner buyer. Okay, and then most of them are renters, and they're not asset owners. I have a slide here that shows that at the end of the first semester, we still have 162 units of unrealized sales. This will be taken out in the third quarter. I just show this to give further evidence of a good demand for mass housing in this country. And it gives us a good start for third quarter's performance. Let's look at the balance sheet. If you have any questions in the balance sheet, I have my Deputy CFO, Ms. Rohan Ventura, over there, and she will answer all your questions. I actually build the houses, she accounts for them. So that's how we divide the labor in this company. So 42 increase in assets, mainly because of new land purchases and our increase in our in-house finance contract receivables. The increase in total liabilities, these were borrowings for construction activities. Operating expense and increase in land bank by more than 110 hectares. And we think that the way to go for 2015 and beyond is to increase our business dealing with Pag-IBIG Fund. I have to say that prior to 2011, we were purely Pag-IBIG Fund developers in the sense that we deliver all our accounts to them and then they pay us. At that time, I had all the money that the company needed, and I had no debt. Today, I have an in-house financing portfolio of so much, and I have an equivalent amount of debt. We think that in going back to Pag-IBIG Fund, because the situation has become significantly much better, we are now able to balance our cash flows and therefore our assets and liabilities in our balance sheet better, so that we can now have a stronger asset base and cash flow to continue our growth for the next years. Some financial ratios, they're within acceptable industry standards. We have earnings per share that grew by 18% in the first semester. We think that our bond listing will now bring our current ratio down to a level of 1.6 times. So this is the Pag-IBIG story. So basically what we're saying that in just 2 quarters, we have already surpassed 2014's full takeout at almost 1.9 billion pesos. And then this is a marked difference from last quarter's performance. I think this grew by maybe more than 100%, on quarter. As you can see, the amount of takeout that we have compared to the amount of folders or the value that we delivered, there's still so much of cash that we're expecting from Pag-IBIG Fund as of this date of delivery. But I think I can take out all the 1 billion within 1 or 2 weeks' time. At the end of the day, the metric for me is how many folders I've delivered to the fund. Because once it's delivered and accepted, then all I need to do is just to wait for the checks to come out. That may entail more frequent telephone calls following up in the cashier, just to make sure that the processing of accounts is proceeding well. The other thing that we need to note about Pag-IBIG Fund as a government agency is that it somehow lumps its performance towards the last quarter or the last month of the first semester and the last month or the last quarter of year end. Maybe because that's how their metrics are also evaluated. And so I just have to bear with that kind of seasonality when we talk to government institutions like Pag-IBIG Fund. But the nice thing about this is that if they accept it, then we have every right to follow it up already. And so, our cash flow improves for 1H15. We know that a 70% decline in net cash use. It indicates a greater usage of internally generated funds versus bank borrowings. And one of the reasons why we're able to do this is we have increased our takeouts and therefore our cash flow from Pag-IBIG Fund. If this trend continues of us getting more and more cash flows from Pag-IBIG Fund, we expect our cash flow from operations to be positive by the end of 2015. That is, ladies and gentlemen, one of the major objectives of this year. And so, the job of operations, therefore, is to make sure that there is a steady delivery of housing and folders and clients towards the way of Pag-IBIG Fund. One of the things that we've done is and the market is such that it's not enough that the interest rate has dropped 6.5. One of the things about mass housing is that you end up selling 2 products. First, you sell your house and lot, and then you sell your financing program. That thing has to be sold too. And like anything that you sell, there's got to be a promo. So that the promo for the year is that if you elect to buy a house and lot from us and you go to Pag-IBIG Fund, we're giving you a motorcycle for free. So it's It's Ride Home to Pag-IBIG Fund promo. And I hear that it's very well received. Because one of the things we realize about this market is that it's predominantly a motorcycle riding market. And so they understand the value of motorcycles more than other people. So, pwede lang, yes. And so, if they can invest in a, in a sidecar, then they can really have a tandem. But it's really well received, and I think also that the market appreciates the fact that when we study their demographics and their situation, transportation is also a major consideration in buying residences. That is why in some of our projects, we have shuttle buses that bring them from the subdivision to a particular city center point. Diba? And so we've also doubled this by giving a free motorcycle. Of course, it's not free. But because they don't pay anything extra, then the perception is indeed they don't have to add additional.
This is a raffle offer.
No.
For as long as it's approved by Pag-IBIG.
Yes, and then I give you a voucher. You can go to this motorcycle shop and get your brand new motorcycle. It's actually, the cost of the motorcycle is already incorporated in the package price. So this is one of the reasons why every quarter we increase our package prices to make room for things like this, major promotion. Because we have to sell, that's one of the things. I thought that when we announced that we're opening our door again to Pag-IBIG Fund, our buyers, both old and new, would be lining up. No, they don't want to do that. They don't want to be bothered. They've already gotten into habit of paying Deca Homes in-house finance. And now I'm asking them to redo all their documentation again. Because they're already used to the fact that, okay, it's Deca Homes we're paying. And so we had to educate our buyers into what it means when an interest rate drops from our 9.5 to Pag-IBIG 6.5 and why it's worth your while. We've had success with that. We want to move massive amounts now of buyers to Pag-IBIG Fund, generating us more and more cash flows. And if it takes a motorcycle to do that, ladies and gentlemen, I will be the happiest to give them one. And so it's picking up. And so my expectation is by the end of the year, even if we committed to a 50% Pag-IBIG Fund and 50% in-house finance, I would like to skew this even further in favor of Pag-IBIG Fund. Say 75-25. So that I'm also able to generate more cash and therefore have savings. It's like in the market now. Some people are actually saying, it could be better to be in cash for a while. And so I guess in property that's also the same. It might be better for us to be in cash for a while. In spite of that, we have a very good CTS income profile. We have a collection efficiency that's 96%. Therefore, our rate of cancellation is 4%. We've been managing this very well. And the trend of anywhere from 95 to 97% has been the average for the past 10 quarters already. And one of the reasons maybe why it's stable is that this is really 20,000 accounts. It's really a big universe to rely on. What is also interesting is that although while the number of units increases, the interest income actually increases more. So I'm able to get more income out of a lower increase in the number of units. But my feeling is it has to be a conscious effort on the company to actually pare down the CTS. Because right now, there is a natural tendency to increase CTS. One of the reasons is, it's easier to market because we actually have, because the credit evaluation process is internal, there's actually fewer number of documents. There are actually fewer number of requirements. In other words, in order to get into CTS, with that, you don't need to, there's no contributions you have to update and pay, like Pag-IBIG fund, right? Even if we're all members, we don't really require membership to Pag-IBIG fund. That's opening DECA homes to non-Pag-IBIG members like the professionals, diba? Like doctors, who, if you will now, and I speak in very general terms, who, if you would now subject them to the evaluation process of Pag-IBIG funds affordability, some doctors would not qualify because it's all ITR based. Diba? But that's why there is really a benefit to having an in-house financing. But we'd like to go back to the situation where majority of our revenues come from Pag-IBIG, maybe 70%, and only 30% would be in-house generated. Diba? And we would now we would have the luxury of becoming even more, in a way, more strict with the requirements. This is a picture of our land bank. Last year, our land bank was officially 335 hectares. Today, it is 446 hectares. Still a little bit short of the 500 hectares that we committed to do when we did the follow-on in 2014. But we're getting there. This 446 hectares will yield about 89,000 units, an estimated value of 108 billion. Now, what I've always emphasized with this, especially when I talk to foreign funds about, whether or not our land bank is too small compared to the property developers, is also this, is that in mass housing, my property cuts are small. And therefore, the aggregate land bank I need in order to do 89,000 units is also small. Diba? Now, if a mid-cost developer would actually sell minimum lot cuts of 200 square meters, and DECA Homes' minimum lot cuts would be at about 50 square meters, then that means my 446 million is equivalent in mid-cost terms to more than 1,000 or 1,500 hectares. Because my yield in the number of units, diba, is the same. So I don't need a larger amount of land bank because my lot cuts that I sell is small. So that's what I tell them. But because we've also committed to grow our business by 20% for the next 5 years, so that in 2020 we would have doubled in size, in terms of number of projects, in terms of employees, in terms of number of houses built, in terms of gross revenue, the whole growth doubling in 5 years. This business activity of 89,000 units is only good for 5 years. And so after a while, we would now be buying some more property still. We just want to show you what our partnerships look like. So what we don't believe in developing certain expertise outside of our core, because that would mean spending a lot of time, energy, and resources to what essentially we believe to be non-core. And so instead of doing that, we just want to build strong relationships with the best partners we can find. And so Mega White has become our construction partner for high-rise condominiums. So they're doing the one in our EDSA project. They're also going to do the ones in Vitas Tondo and the ones in Ortigas. we are now in talks on how Megawide can actually be part of our horizontal subdivision project as well. And so the relationship is evolving well. We have partnered with Walter Mart, and we will have 2 malls under the Walter Mart partnership for now. One is in the Ortigas Avenue Extension condominium complex, and the other is in the Vilas Condo. We have partnered with the Organization of Socialized and Economic Housing Developers of the Philippines, or OSDAP. This is the special focus organization for socialized and low-cost housing. And we have partnered in such a way as to create an institute for housing policy and advocacy research studies. One of the things that we realize about this industry, especially mass housing, is that there's not enough available information. And the statistics that are available tend to be outdated. And therefore, with the partnership and with an endowment to this institute, we hope to come out with not only current statistics, but also analysis coming from the academe. And so we're partnering with Ateneo, UP, and PIDS and LaSalle in order to encourage professors to analyze and compile data with regards to housing and shelter. And we hope it actually becomes a much bigger activity than we hope. This will be launched this year in the OSDAP convention, I think in August. We've also partnered with Meralco, and our project in Bella Vista, Decohomes Bella Vista in General Trias, has become the first horizontal project to use prepaid electricity. We like prepaid electricity because it gives our customers feedback on how much electricity they consume before the bill. One of the things we realized about electric consumption that's postpaid is that the buyers sometimes get shocked when they receive the electric bill, which is outside of their budget. And therefore, now it becomes hard for our customer or our homeowner to decide whether or not he wants to live in the house but has to use candles, or he has electricity but he pays us penalties. And so, in order to rationalize it, we think that because of prepaid, you can actually get advice as to how much you spend. So if in a month your budget is 1,000 pesos for your electricity, and after 2 weeks you've already spent 800, then you know that right away, and you're able to adjust your consumption and your lifestyle accordingly, so that you're not too much out of budget when the month ends or when your salary comes. That actually helps us maintain our collection efficiencies as well. We also have iTech RAR Solutions, and this is our pilot project for connectivity and cable in our Cebu mid-rise building in Manila. We also like this because part of our secrets to the success of house is buyer's education. As you know, we have 2 seminars. One is a buyer's orientation seminar, where we tell the buyer, if the salesperson tells the buyer all the good stuff, we have a sales orientation seminar that tells him about the bad stuff. How it's a financial responsibility, how you have to budget, what is the meaning behind all these forms that you have to fill out. You've got to know that too. What is a loan and mortgage agreement? What's a promissory note? What are post-dated checks? And why is it important for you to pay the bank regularly so that your checks are funded? So we go down to that. But what we also do is we also teach the homeowner budgeting. Okay? And so this is an ongoing concern. And we also realize that education is not a one-time thing. Therefore, we'd like to use cable connectivity to have a special portal by which we can continue to educate our buyers so that they really make the payment of monthly amortization a habit for a lifetime. And we think that the best way to do that is education. Let me just give you an update. This is the slide that I showed early in 2015. What's in store for this year? So we're on track to do 11,000 units. Out of the 9 new projects, we've already launched 6. We need to open new branches. And I think that one of the ways by which we will achieve our 20% growth year on year for the next 5 years is not only to increase our presence in places where we already are, but we need to start new branches. For this year, we have targeted 3. We are going to open in Bulacan, in Manila. This is because this is the year when VitaRich finally moves everything out. And so that was part of the deal when we bought the VitaRich property in Bulacan. They wanted to have a year in order to dismantle their processing plant. And so they're about done. So we can now move in and start a new branch called the Bulacan area branch. We're also going to be in Bacolod City. In fact, if everything goes well, I should be able to publicly disclose in 1 week's time the purchase and the establishment of a new branch when we buy the property next week. And then we're also going to Zamboanga City. Zamboanga City is nice because we're the only big developer who's going there. And that's why I tell my staff na, don't listen to all that news about Zamboanga City because it's overrated. The kidnappings and all these terrorism, that only happens once a week. Diba? But seriously aside, it's a very good place to have a housing business because UANP studies have already indicated rental rates outside of NCR, the highest is in Zamboanga. So I can compete very well with the rental population or the rental supply. One of the things that makes this business successful is the truth that in the Philippines, why rent when you can own? Because for as long as the rental rates are almost equal to the monthly amortization rates, then we have what I call a truthful and natural, unmistakable marketing proposition. In other countries, it's not the same. Because we're partnered with Kasana, they invited us to look at the mass housing market in KL. And one of the things I realized is that the reverse is true in KL. Why own when you can rent? Because the rental rates are at least 50% lower than monthly amortization rates. Diba? So those are the things that we realize, and those are the things that we also educate our buyers with. Na Filipinos are fortunate in the sense that compared to some ASEAN countries, Singapore, Hong Kong, let's put Hong Kong in, maybe some parts of KL, no matter how much you earn, it will never be enough for you to afford to buy a house in that area. But in the Philippines, you actually still can. Okay, so 3 new branches. We have a commitment to do 50% of HDMF takeouts, which we plan to even increase. I'd be happy if I can, at the end of the year, do 75% Pag-IBIG. Diba? I'm just one step from closing the door again of the in-house. Because I want to focus. I want the marketing staff to focus on Pag-IBIG, and that's why I have to do that in a big way. That's why motorcycles are only applicable for Pag-IBIG accounts. If you're selling in-house the CTS Gold of DECA, you don't get a motorcycle. Okay, so I talked about the third wakeboard park in Iloilo. We did successfully the 9 billion bond, the cable internet and the mall joint venture partnership with Walmart. And so we're still committing to our guidance for 2015, which is 10 billion, 60% gross margin, 4 billion at 40% net margin. If we succeed, we're going to be 20% growth, which is actually our plan. 20% growth every year, I think is doable, given what we have and given what I think we can conservatively do. Okay, 2014 kasi was a spectacular year. We grew by 50%. I don't want to grow 50% every year because I want to have a life as well. So last year also I actually said this, and I just want to just repeat it again, that part of the vision of 8990 is actually to build a product that's very good, that's very solid, just like the vision of Henry Ford. It's large enough for the family, small enough to take care of, using the best materials, hiring the best people, employing the best technology, but offering it to the market at a price every Filipino who has a paycheck working for the company can very well afford. If we're able to do that, then the vision and mission of House, we're going there towards fulfilling it. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the officers, the staff, and the owners of 8990, thank you very much. If you have any questions, Rohan can answer that. Thank you. We also have some snacks, so if there are no questions, maybe you can just eat and yeah.
How much of the almost 2 billion that you delivered to Pag-IBIG, how much of that represents the sales?
Sales in the how much of the 2 billion is sales in the first half?
If I can estimate, I think at about 75%.
75.
25 the sales of the
Because
prior
it's
year.
easier to migrate people, migrate new buyers to Pag-IBIG than to mine the existing portfolio.
Yeah, it's
Which
fresh.
represents how much of sales for the
1.4. For the first half, with 10%.
Okay, so you're still quite far from the 15%.
Yeah, it's really far, but that's why I'm also saying, me, I still see myself reaching 5 billion for Pag-IBIG, even more. It's just that I'm more used to their way of working. You count on them in the towards the first semester and towards the year end. That time they just take out everything. So for me, my goal is to just to deliver it, diba? Because they're going to take everything out by the end of the year. Now they have a luxury to take a look at everything, be fussy. Diba? Kasi there's no metrics for mid-semester. Yes, the average approval now, I'd say, is about 5 weeks. Yes. Okay, from 2011 to 2014 of about 8 months. Yeah. The last time I got quoted with that, I received a phone call from Attorney Berberabe. Sabi ko, ma'am, totoo naman, di ba? Alam mo kung sinabi, dapat mo na sabihin yan. Be positive. Oh, ayan ha. So I'm now saying that the relationship between developers and Pag-IBIG is becoming positive every day. Because prior to 2011, it was 7 days. Tapos, di ba, there's something happened in 2011 that made Pag-IBIG very strict, and then they reacted. So naging 8 months yun. Ngayon nga, mas maganda na 5 weeks. We can live with 5 weeks. Diba? And then they lowered interest rates. So, for me, these are really concrete signals of Pag-IBIG wanting to, diba, to make housing finance more accessible. Kumbaga, they have finally forgiven the industry of Delfinly. Pinatawad na kaming lahat. Pero matagal din yun, ha? Well, the requirements are still the same. They're still the same. It's more of the processing. And I think that sinasabi ko nga, more than just, kasi pag magsabit naman ng folder, kompleto na eh. So ano ang pagkakaiba ngayon? Mindset. Diba? If the organization has the mindset of all these folders are actually fake buyers, and wrongful, then you will spend much more time looking over and over these folders than if you would approach with the mindset na, okay, this folder has a presumption of correctness. Diba? Because we are dealing with reputable developers. Diba?
Some question because the way they validate information, kasi tawagan sila doon.
No, they went through that. They went through that in the area, in the years 2011 to mga 2014. Diba? And then, of course, you also saw Pag-IBIG's performance drop from a takeout in 2011 of 52 million to about 30 million. Now it's up. Now last year they actually made about 46, but it is nowhere still from the averages that we had prior to 2011. We reached a high of 52 billion.
What's your batting average? I mean, I'm sure that we applicants for every 100 application, 50%.
Zero rejection, 100%. And that's because number one, our organization grew out of the Pag-IBIG model. That's why we have 7 days construction period. So it's because it takes 7 days to process the account. Diba? So, to take full advantage of the 7-day processing of Pag-IBIG, then you have to build the house as fast as well. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So, Dachan, even our documentation people, even our sales and marketing, they're actually more geared towards Pag-IBIG fund. We actually do the pre-evaluation process in the same way as Pag-IBIG fund does. Diba? And so, throughout the years, we have already, kumbaga, imbibe, okay, what affordability, what eligibility, and what kind of buyers will pass.
Should you do that before continuing sale to buy?
Yes.
After?
Yes, and that is the reason also for the buyer's orientation seminar. When we subject the buyer there, we expect him also to bring his documents.
If you check the buyer, you need the final pass of the
Yes.
Or you
Yes.
move it to your in-house?
No, yes, we actually do. And para madali na lang, kasi one of the things we have that Pag-IBIG doesn't is a minimum salary requirement. They don't have that eh. Pero that is merely, our minimum salary requirement is merely the, kumbaga, the translation of all the policies of Pag-IBIG. That's why we have minimum salary 35,000. Oo, so pag nakaabot na siya doon, pasado na siya eh. And so para hindi masyadong ma-confuse din yung mga sellers namin, yung mga agents. Kasi pagko-compute pa sila niyan eh, ng affordability based on 40% net disposable income or 30% gross family income, whichever is lower, mga ganyan sabi ko, 35,000. Magpakita ka ng income na 35,000. So, that's household income. So if you're married, then you split it in two, which is more or less equal, just a little bit higher than minimum wage. Diba? Ngayon, sa probinsya, pwede pang pangatlo. If your son was already also working, you can add his payslip. Yes. Now, you can also add in Pag-IBIG fund, and we're following the same thing, unrecorded income. Oo. So, kunyari, meron kang sideline. Ha?
May mga to.
Hindi, wala. Nasa in-house lahat. Nahihirapan yung galing. So, meron ding exception sa Pag-IBIG eh. Ito yung mga looking the other way. Kung doktor ka, lawyer, ganyan, you have presumptive income. Diba? So, yung other informal sources of income, let's say, and the basic document that you show to prove unofficial income is a passbook. So we have to show, like you have remittances from abroad, that's number one, most common. We require the buyer to show us a passbook where all these remittances are found. To have a track record of that income. Yes. And Pag-IBIG, more or less, para madali na lang din sa sellers, you can do 25 up to 25% of your income as informal. So kung 35,000 yung sweldo mo, plus 20% informal, you can have that as your sales. Yes. So you can have, for example, a 35,000 income, but 50% of that is official. That cannot be. So kailangan official sources.
Do you have any internal hurdle as to the level of CPS financing that you can carry? Say 20 billion, that's as much as I can get.
Yes, we actually do. I think that our hurdle for me maybe is 25B.
So that you can provide more room for those who are not community members to take advantage of it.
Oo. But ano yan eh, kaya nga in the projections for my CTS, I am now projecting only a 20% increase for the first 5 years and then sliding down to 8% in the next 5. Because ano eh, you can only carry so much CTS one time. Because the thing about CTS is in order to make it useful as cash flow, it's got to have a counterpart credit line from the bank. If you don't have that, no matter how much CTS you have, you'll never have enough to build your units. And it's going to complicate the business. So that's why even if we're not yet affected by what I just said, na at the end of the day, the banks will say, "Oh Jay, I've already lent you 8 billion in CTS lines. We're good, ha? I don't need to lend you more, di ba? Kasi I've proven myself to be a good bank for you." Di ba? But if you don't have an exit mechanism, then you're going to reach the point where all the banks that you deal with will say that, "Guys, we're good." Di ba? It's not that, it has no judgment on whether you're a good client or not. You're actually a good client, but hanggang dito na lang tayo. Yes, and so therefore, before we even reach there, that's why I'm now increasing, I'm going back to Pag-IBIG. Our 1 billion in securitization will actually happen this year. We have just gotten word from the SEC that subject to just a few more requirements, we can actually do it, like a special purpose corporation to be the holder of all this. And so we'll disclose the special purpose corporation along with the document is signed. But meron ng ganon. And then I'm doing CTS purchase with banks. So banks will purchase my CTS. But one of the things I realized is that, okay, on one hand, you have CTS financing with full recourse. In other words, for any time, if the account fails, the developer has to buy it back. On the other hand of the spectrum is CTS without recourse. In other words, full sale, full transfer of liabilities to the bank. All the developers are here with recourse. Here, we were lucky to get China Trust, 1 billion. But that was it, the truth of the matter. So what's happening now is there's a middle ground forming. CTS purchase with limited recourse. So in other words, the bank will buy from you, let's say 2 billion worth of your CTS, but they're going to season it for 2 to 3 years. And when this passes seasoning, it now is automatically brought to a CTS without recourse. So parang yun yung financial product that's happening. So we're going to do more of those deals. Kasi that's what's realistic between the banking sector and the developer now. Diba? So we will now carry the liability only na lang for the next 2 or 3 years depending on the negotiation. But I think that's going to be the next new product for developers. Purchase of receivables with limited recourse. Because the banks also want to buy our CTS because it's it's a more efficient way of increasing their consumer banking. They don't have to invest in a huge back room. But the thing is, they also want to be sure. Diba? Oh, that's why there's a CCTV.